Have you ever sat across from someone you've known for years, maybe even decades, and felt like they weren't really there with you anymore? Like their eyes were looking at you, but their heart was somewhere else? That feeling? It's not easy to describe, but you know it when it happens. It hits you quietly at first. Maybe during dinner, when there's more silence than conversation. Or when you go to say something important and they're already looking at their phone or walking out of the room. And you wonder, what changed? Is it me? Is it them? Is this just what happens with time? Now, if you're over 60, I don't need to tell you that love isn't just about flowers, fancy dinners, or passionate kisses. At this stage in life, love looks a little different. It's about respect. It's about comfort. It's about being seen and heard. It's about that silent understanding, the one where you can sit in the same room and not say a word and still feel connected. But when someone starts emotionally pulling away, the silence becomes different, heavier, uncomfortable. And sometimes it's the little things that whisper the truth long before the big things shout it out loud. That's why this conversation matters. Because the earlier you notice those little shifts, the better you can understand what's really going on, whether it's something that can be healed or something you need to prepare your heart for. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 of the earliest signs that someone you love may be pulling away emotionally. And we're going to do it gently, truthfully, and with care, because you deserve nothing less. Let's begin with one of the quietest but most telling signs. When their interest in your day starts to fade, you know what I mean. You come home or pick up the phone and start to share something. Maybe it's about your garden, your doctor's appointment, or even a memory that popped into your mind. And instead of leaning in with curiosity, they just nod or give a half smile. Or worse, they say something like, "Oh, that's nice," and immediately shift the topic back to themselves, or nothing at all. You notice you're the only one asking questions now. You're the one keeping the conversation going. You're offering up pieces of yourself, hoping to feel that connection again. But it starts to feel one-sided, and that stings, doesn't it? Because being listened to isn't about words, it's about being valued. When someone stops showing interest in your stories, your thoughts, your small wins, or even your bad days, that's not just emotional distance, that's emotional absence. And you start to feel like a guest in a relationship where you used to feel like a partner. The second sign, it's when affection becomes an afterthought or disappears altogether. I'm not just talking about physical intimacy, although that can be part of it. I'm talking about the little gestures, a hand on your back when you're walking side by side, a kiss on the forehead before bed, a squeeze of the hand when you're sharing something hard. The warmth of love is often felt in the small things, and when those small things go missing, you start to feel cold, even if you're sitting in the same room. Now, sometimes life gets busy or stressful, and those gestures can fade for a little while. That happens. But when someone truly cares, they come back to them. They notice your need for closeness. They reach out again. But when love starts to fade, those moments don't just pause, they vanish. And when you bring it up, they might say things like, "You're too sensitive," or "I'm just tired," or they act like you're making something out of nothing. And that's when you really start to feel alone, even in their presence. It can be confusing, especially when you've shared a long history together. You think, "We've been through so much. This can't just disappear." And maybe it hasn't entirely. But love doesn't leave all at once. It leaves quietly, step by step. And noticing the early steps isn't about jumping to conclusions or accusing anyone. It's about honoring your own emotional well-being. It's about saying, "I feel this, I see this, and I'm not going to ignore what my heart is trying to tell me." Now, none of this is about blaming or shaming. Sometimes emotional distance has more to do with what the other person is going through. Grief, fear, regret, stress, those things can make people shut down. But the difference is, when someone still loves you, even if they're struggling, they try, they communicate, they let you in. They may not always have the right words, but you still feel their presence. When that emotional effort starts to fade, when they stop trying, when they stop showing up emotionally, that's when you have to take a step back and really look at what's happening. And I want you to remember this. You are not too much. Your needs are not too big. Your desire to be loved, seen, and respected is not a burden, especially not at this stage in your life, where time becomes more precious and honesty becomes even more important. Because when someone truly cares, they don't make you feel like a question mark in your own relationship. They make you feel safe. And if that safety has started to feel shaky, it's okay to ask why. It's okay to speak up. It's okay to want more. You've earned the right to be loved fully and to feel emotionally connected, not just out of habit or history, but because someone is choosing you, day after day, in the way that matters. Let's pause here. We've touched on how emotional distance shows up in conversation and affection, and as you start to notice these signs, I want you to be gentle with yourself. This isn't about panic or fear. It's about awareness. It's about learning to read the emotional temperature of your relationship without doubting your instincts. And if you've ever felt like something was changing, like someone's presence in your life was starting to shift, you're not alone. You're not imagining things, and you're strong enough to face it with clarity, with grace, and with courage. Now take a breath. You're doing just fine. Let's keep going. When we start noticing that someone isn't as present in our lives as they once were, it can stir up a lot of emotions. Confusion, sadness, even anger. Especially when you've built a life together or shared years, decades of memories. But I want you to know something very important before we move forward. It's not wrong to notice when something feels off. It's not negative to speak truthfully about emotional distance. And it's never too late to bring things into the light, whether that's for healing, for closure, or simply for your own peace of mind. Let's talk about another quiet sign that someone might be pulling away emotionally. It shows up when the future stops being a shared conversation. You might bring up something simple, like planning a trip, organizing a family gathering, or even something small like rearranging the living room. And you notice their response is vague, dismissive, or downright uninterested. In the past, the two of you may have talked about what's next with excitement or curiosity. You might have planned vacations, looked forward to birthdays or holidays, or just sat together dreaming about things to do around the house or new hobbies to try. That kind of planning isn't just about schedules. It's about connection. It's about investing in a shared life. But when someone emotionally checks out, the future stops being something you talk about together. You'll notice they might say things like, "We'll see," or "I don't know," or "Let's not worry about that now." And when that happens often enough, you start to feel like you're living two separate lives under the same roof, like you're holding up the hope and the effort all on your own. What makes this one so difficult is that it often happens slowly. One missed conversation, one small change in how they react to plans, and then suddenly, you're looking ahead and realizing you're the only one still looking ahead. And that kind of loneliness can feel deeper than being alone physically. It's a quiet ache because it reminds you that connection isn't just about being near someone. It's about moving forward together, even if the steps are small. Now, the fourth sign is one that can be hard to admit, but it's one of the clearest they stop opening up to you. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time they shared how they were really feeling? I mean, truly opened up, not just surface level talk like "I'm tired" or "work was fine," but the kind of conversation where you felt like they were letting you into their inner world. Emotional connection lives in vulnerability. And when someone is still deeply connected to you, they share. They talk to you when they're excited or scared or confused. They turn to you, not away from you, when they're overwhelmed. Even if it's just to say, "I don't know what I'm feeling, but I wanted to tell you." But when the love begins to fade and emotional distance sets in, they shut that door. You start to hear less about what they're thinking, less about how their day actually went, less about what's weighing on their heart. And if you ask, you might get short answers or no answer at all. They might change the subject or act like there's nothing to talk about. That withdrawal can feel like rejection, and over time it makes you question if you're still a safe space for them, or if you ever were. And let me tell you something, you deserve to be that safe space. You deserve emotional closeness just as much now as you did at any other time in your life. That doesn't change with age. If anything, it becomes more valuable, because what matters now isn't just the surface level stuff. It's the deep, quiet connection that brings comfort and meaning to each day. When someone stops sharing with you, you feel the emptiness grow. Even if the routines are still there, meals, chores, errands, something feels missing. and you carry that silence with you, sometimes without even realizing how heavy it's become. And let me just say this, from the heart, it's okay to grieve that. Emotional distance is a kind of loss. Even if the person is still physically present, it's okay to feel the sadness of that growing space between you. It's not weakness, it's honesty. Now there's one more subtle but powerful shift that often happens when emotional distance begins. They stop showing appreciation. This one often flies under the radar, because it doesn't feel like a sharp break. It's more like a slow dimming of the light. You keep doing things you've always done. You cook, you clean, you show up, you remember things that matter to them. You try to keep the peace, keep the love going, keep the connection alive. But where there used to be thank yous, smiles, warm words, now there's just silence. Or worse, there's criticism. Instead of feeling appreciated, you feel taken for granted. Maybe even invisible. And that can hurt more than most people realize. Because love isn't just built on big gestures, it's built on small everyday acknowledgments. A look, a word, a gesture that says, I see you, I value you, I'm grateful for you. When that disappears, it chips away at your spirit. And if you don't talk about it, or if you try to talk and get dismissed, it can start to affect your confidence, your mood, your health. You may even begin to question your worth, especially if this relationship is one you've invested so much of yourself into. But please remember this, your worth is not measured by someone else's ability to notice you. You are valuable, lovable, and deserving of appreciation, no matter how someone else is behaving. Their distance does not diminish your light. Now maybe as you're listening, you're nodding quietly to yourself. Maybe you're realizing that some of these things have been happening in your life. Maybe not all at once. Maybe just a few. But they've made you feel a little less secure, a little more alone. If that's the case, I want you to breathe for a moment and hold on to this truth. Noticing these signs is not about panic. It's about clarity. Because when you can see clearly, you can choose wisely. Maybe it's a conversation that needs to happen. Maybe it's a boundary you need to draw, or maybe it's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you finally start honoring your needs, the way you've always honored others. You are not asking for too much by wanting to feel loved. You're asking for something real, something human, something that everyone deserves, especially in the later chapters of life, where time and truth matter more than ever. Let's keep walking through this together. You're not alone. And you are far stronger than you think. There's something deeply painful about giving your heart to someone over years, sometimes over a lifetime, only to feel that their heart is slowly drifting away. Not in an explosive way, not with shouting or slamming doors, but in a quiet, subtle, day-by-day fading. It's almost like trying to hold on to something you can't quite touch anymore. By now, you might be recognizing some of these shifts. Maybe you've been feeling them for a while. That sense of disconnection, the decrease in affection, the conversations that don't go anywhere, the silence around plans, the lack of appreciation. And yet there's still a piece of you that hopes it's just a phase, something temporary, something that might turn around if you just hang in there a little longer. And sometimes it does, but not always. And so we come to another sign that someone may no longer be emotionally invested the way they once were. And this one is hard to face. Their presence starts to feel like a routine, not a relationship. You know how that feels. They're physically there. The routines are still happening. They get up, go about their day, sit on the couch in the evening, maybe eat dinner with you, maybe not. But something's different. The energy is flat. The warmth is missing. It's as if you're living beside each other instead of with each other. You go from partners to cohabitants. From teammates to two people, simply sharing space. They might still do the expected things, drive you to appointments, mow the lawn, pay the bills, but there's no emotion behind it, no spark, no laughter, no checking in with you beyond the basics. And slowly, you find yourself missing them even when they're right in front of you. That kind of absence, while still being present, can be the hardest to sit with, because it's not about what's being said. It's about what's no longer being felt. And let's be honest, by this age, we've all seen enough of life to know when something's not right. We've learned to spot emotional shifts. We've lived through love and loss, closeness and distance. We've seen relationships that survived storms, and others that quietly unraveled behind closed doors. So if you're noticing these changes, I want to encourage you to do one thing above all. Trust your intuition. That voice inside you, that quiet whisper that says something feels different. It's there for a reason. Don't ignore it. Don't brush it off to avoid discomfort. You've spent enough of your life making others feel comfortable. Now it's time to make yourself feel seen, heard, and honored. Now that doesn't mean you need to make a sudden decision or start an argument. Not at all. It means taking a moment for honesty with yourself first. Ask yourself, how long has it felt this way? What am I afraid to admit? What would I say if I wasn't afraid of rocking the boat? And once you have that clarity, then comes the courage to speak, kindly, calmly, and directly. To say, I feel a distance between us, and I want to understand what's happening. That kind of conversation can be uncomfortable, yes, but it can also be freeing. Because whether it leads to healing or to a necessary change, you'll no longer be carrying all the weight alone. You deserve a love that's alive, a connection that feeds your spirit, not something that just exists out of habit or obligation. And I want to say this very clearly. It's never too late to seek that kind of connection. Never. Whether you've been with someone for 5 years or 50, your heart still matters. Your peace still matters. And you do not have to settle for being emotionally abandoned in your own relationship. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, but we've been together for so long. Isn't this just what happens over time? And yes, relationships do change. They evolve. The fire becomes warmth. The excitement becomes comfort. That's normal. But there's a difference between change and neglect, between maturity and emotional abandonment. If the connection is still there, if the love is still alive, then even in the quiet moments, you still feel close. You still feel safe. You still feel like you're in it together. That's the kind of bond that gets stronger with age, not weaker. But when emotional neglect becomes the norm, when you feel more alone with someone than you would feel on your own, that's not just aging. That's a relationship that needs attention. Maybe the love can be rekindled. Maybe a conversation is all it takes to bring awareness to what's been lost. Or maybe it's time to accept that the other person has stepped away emotionally, and now it's your turn to step forward for yourself. Whichever path is yours, I want you to take it with self-respect, with strength, with a deep knowing that your feelings are valid, and your future is still yours to shape. Don't let the fear of change keep you in a place of quiet sadness. Don't let someone else's emotional withdrawal cause you to shrink yourself to stay close. That's not love. That's survival. And you were made for more than just surviving. You were made to live, to feel, to love, to grow. You still have time. You still have choices. And you still have a heart that deserves to be met with care, not distance. So if you've been sitting with that uneasy feeling, if you've been waiting for something to shift, for something to come back, or for someone to notice that you're hurting, maybe today is the day you stop waiting. Maybe today is the day you begin listening to yourself, taking your emotions seriously, and deciding that you matter just as much as anyone else. It's not about blame. It's not about bitterness. It's about truth. It's about healing. And it's about loving yourself enough to want more, because you are worth more. You always have been. And if no one's told you that lately, let me say it right now. You are worthy of real love. You are worthy of presence. You are worthy of affection and attention and care. And no matter what someone else has stopped giving you, you can start giving those things to yourself today. You're not too old to seek connection. You're not too far gone to reclaim your joy. You're not stuck. You're just at a crossroads, and your next steps are still entirely yours to choose. So take a deep breath. This isn't the end. This might just be the beginning.